the customer journey. Thank you, I forgot that bit. It really improves the customer journey, but also will make it easier to manage programs like this, like retrofit programs, and start to develop really meaningful data for those who manage programs like local authorities, but also for the customer themselves and for the property, which is really important. So without further ado, I think it's important that we first understand why we've done this and where this has come from. So I'm going to bring Taz in at this point. Taz, if you could just introduce yourself to start with, who you are, who you work for, maybe in less than 30 seconds, and then talk about the experience that you had in working with the council and with Dodd Group on delivering the LADS program, some of the challenges that we had, you as our partner community organisation, but also some of your residents, the people who live in your community. That'd be really great. Thank you.
So hello everyone, my name is Taz and I work for MEC Trust. MEC is an independent charity. It functions a bit like a citizens advice bureau. It was set up in 1979 and it's really positioned in the community to deal with the different challenges that we face. And it's really a citizens advice bureau, first and foremost. And during the pandemic, I have to say that they had to reposition themselves because Balsall Heath is one of the most deprived areas of the city. It's largely a BAME community. So in terms of demographics, in terms of all the statistics, all the challenges, they've really got their work cut out. And so I'm just part of the team here and I do community engagement. When we found out about retrofit, we didn't really know what it meant. We didn't really understand the terminology and the jargon. It was all coming from this alien construction industry dictionary that we'd never seen before. So it was about unpacking that language and making it something that we could communicate to our clients. It was a very top-down process. So when we were brought in, we were like, uh-oh, here we go again, bottom of the food chain, need a charity to do your community engagement. But having said that, as a team, we sat down and we said, okay, these are the partners, Birmingham City Council, the Civico, Dodd's Group, why are we here? So in terms of our values, it's very important for us to tackle fuel poverty. It's very important for us to lift aspirational levels in the community. And we also understood very quickly that retrofit was not going away. It was going to be something that is going to happen to the rest of the country. And we were coming in first or fairly early in terms of implementation. So we felt it was important for us to remain in the room, to be part of the process, to learn. And we made this very clear at the start. We said, we don't know what any of this means, but we think we can help. And if you can have some patience with us, because we think we're going to have to go on a steep learning curve. And I've got to take my hat off to all of our partners. They were very obliging and they did listen. And so our plan actually changed week by week, month by month, as we were trying to figure out what it was we were supposed to be doing in terms of community engagement, because retrofit is very complicated. Do I need to say anything else?
No, that's great, Taz. That's a really good introduction. Thank you. Do you want to talk a little bit about some of the communication issues around that customers faced and the challenges that caused for you as a support organisation?
Yeah, I think that when you're so we have a database for the citizens advice that we give, and when we started understanding the sort of metrics involved, we thought, is there a quick way of finding the clients that we need to talk to. Is this something we can pull down from our spreadsheets, etc.? We weren't able to do that exactly. We also had some data from CoreLogic, and we were trying to unpack what it is that we needed to say. And I have to say, the expectations from the clients, the residents, was very difficult to manage, because and initially when we started the project, we were sort of using this very crude metric. The scheme is £7 million, so that's 700 homes we want to target. You could have £10,000 spent on your home. And so some clients even said, how do I get hold of the £10,000? You know, and we were like, no, hold on, wait a minute, let's break that down for you. And so you then have to say it's a fabric first approach. And so you have to explain that, you have to explain what an EPC is, whether they're eligible or not. There's actually a lot of information to unpack. The other issue was that digital literacy is very low. So people were coming in and we were sort of hand-holding, showing people what's available online or on their phones. And also we have a BAME community where English is sometimes not the best language to communicate in. So predominantly Kashmiri and Arab speaking residents around here. So we used all our translators in-house, and things do get lost in translation as well. So it was very challenging in terms of like communicating the message, and the initial sort of material that we had to produce had to be very carefully worded.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Taz. We'll come back to that in a bit. I'm just going to introduce, or allow Dan to introduce himself. But before you introduce yourself, Dan, I think it's really fair to say that things go wrong, don't they? In any project, things go wrong, and quite a few things went wrong in terms of communications through the LADS program. But I think what sets one organisation above another is how they take responsibility for the things going wrong, and how they then deal with it. And I will say, whilst I think in the early stages of the project we were all learning, Dodd Group really stepped up, and since LADS program, I know they've gone through a lot of change based on the learning that they took from that to really make sure the service they offer in the future is the best it can be. So that's really impressed me. So Dan, can you just introduce yourself and Dodds, talk a little bit about some of those early experiences and the kind of customer experiences that you had, and the challenges that led to in terms of time and effort for Dodd Group as well?
Certainly, thank you, Dan. Yeah, so I'm Daniel Camp. I'm head of retrofit and building services at Dodd Group. For those of you who know Dodd Group of old, we are predominantly an M&E business. So we do a lot of heat pumps and solar PV, etc., etc. This was our first large-scale foray into retrofit and building side of things, so a turnkey package. And as you said, Dan, and as Taz has already mentioned, customer engagement at the beginning was very difficult. It's not helped by the number of schemes that have been launched, particularly the eco market, and the number of flyers and emails and posts that everybody gets that says you're entitled to this, that, the other free. And a lot of people think in the beginning, and maybe still at the end, thought there must be a catch. There must be something in this. Somebody's making a lot of money. As you mentioned about the £10,000, which included all the fees and all the other costs associated.
Right.
And some people thought that they would just get the £10,000 and spend it themselves. Other people didn't feel that they'd had their value for money. And some people didn't realise what or how far £10,000 can go. The other big issues, I suppose, we had right at the beginning, particularly, is the number of stakeholders involved in a project of this scale and within the PAS 2035 journey. So we had people right at the beginning signing up customers and making sure they met the metric. be that income, household, areas of IMS, etc., etc. Then you had the kind people at MEC and John Christopher's and Nigel and the other community groups that supported people through that journey. Then you had the person going doing your pre-EPC and the retrofit assessment and the retrofit coordination. Then you've got us as contractor. And then you've got the EPC at the end. You've got Birmingham as the administrator. You've got a Civico who kindly helped administer the contract on behalf of BCC. Then you've got DESNES. You've got all these acronyms, and it's difficult for us to keep up with. So as a customer, and again, going back to what Taz said, customers where English isn't necessarily a first language, understanding who did what and when and who was responsible for which element was really challenging.
And sometimes people were receiving emails and phone calls from all these different organisations, which made it extremely unclear who was doing what and who to trust. Yeah, so I think it's a really good point.
Yeah, so that was a challenge, and then understanding what PAS means, what the processes are, why do we need ventilation? That was a big one. You put loft insulation in my property, which is brilliant, but then you're going to put 2 4-inch core holes in my bathroom and my kitchen. You're going to put trickle vents in. You're going to undercut all my doors to improve my ventilation. But surely that, in a lot of people's mind, that's counterintuitive because you've cut a hole in the wall, so you're actually introducing a draft. So there's a huge amount of education around that as well. That was a real challenge for us with people. Initially, we started to do the loft insulation, go back to do the ventilation strategy, and people wouldn't let us in. At which point, again, under PAS, you can't complete the job, you can't sign it off. And unfortunately, in that instance, nobody gets paid because you can't lodge it with Trustmark. So one of the things that we did do, and I don't know how clear this is going to be on the camera, but we came up with this frequently asked questions book that now on all our projects we hand out. And I won't bore you with the details, but we've gone through all those questions that were asked by various people. We've put some pictures to it and we've put it in very simple, plain English for people to understand what the journey means, what some of those acronyms mean, and who the interested parties are. And when we come on speaking to Louis, obviously we're breaking down who does what and when as well, and making that a lot more transparent.
So on that, Dan, very briefly before we bring Louis in, can you kind of sum up how the experiences you had led to you trialing the Novaville Shared Works platform and the reasoning behind that?
Yeah, so there's an awful lot of data flying around, not just for the customer, but for everybody involved. Again, the community groups needed to understand that because they've got people asking them questions that they're not necessarily able to answer. So you've got multiple stakeholders, multiple platforms with data on it, and this dreaded GDPR that sometimes comes into play that means you've got to be very careful about what we share with who, quite rightly. So the platform that we're trialing breaks down a lot of those barriers. It gives us the option to limit access so we don't breach any GDPR and so on, but also giving customers the opportunity to see where they are in the journey. And transparency, I think, is the word ultimately that we needed to arrive at. So the biggest lesson we've learned is how we communicate people, what we communicate to them, and more importantly, how much information they get right at the front end so they understand the journey they're about to go on.
Yeah. That's great, Dan, thank you. So very quickly to sum up on some of those challenges faced by the customers, lots of people contacting them throughout the process, different contractors arranging appointments, extremely confusing with lots of emails being transferred and phone calls, and no one place to go to get the information that they need. And I think for Taz, John, Nigel, people were going to them saying, well, what's happening with my retrofit? And they weren't able to answer that question because there wasn't access to that data. So again, the platform aims to provide that access to the whole team, everybody who's part of the project team. So anyway, I won't get ahead of myself. I'm going to bring in Louis at this point. So again, Louis, if you can start off by introducing yourself, but then maybe I think we're going to do a bit of a demo of the Shared Works platform, and maybe if you could start from the perspective of the customer. What is it? How is their experience improved through the Shared Works platform, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So I'm Louis from Novaville. Just to give you a bit of background on Novaville as a business, we started about 8 years ago, and we started in what we call the citizen engagement space. So we've traditionally always worked with local authorities and created interfaces, front ends essentially for to improve the interaction between local authorities and constituents and residents. And so we've approached these issues very much from the perspective of a technology company working with local authorities, and we don't come from necessarily sort of retrofit or construction background in the first place. So let me actually share my screen then, and I'll tell you a bit about start by telling you a bit about this customer journey and customer engagement, and how does Novaville Shared Works help with that. Okay, so that should have come through. Hopefully, everybody see that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to take you through the whole thing. I'm just going to show you elements that sort of relate to what we've been discussing. I think it would be a bit tedious if we ended up doing a lot of clicking around and stuff. So the journey starts. What we're looking at here is a list of properties that, for instance, Dodd. So this is the platform for the Dodd group. That they would have received a mandate for, okay? Whether it's Eco, GBIS, or another program, they would all arrive in this central dashboard. So what we're going to do is we're going to invite one of the homeowner to join the platform, like with any other platform out there. It starts with an email invitation. So I'm just going to send sign up information to this owner here. And send them a template email.
Can I just jump in there, Louis, to say that the ideal scenario is that the application actually happens through the platform initially, so there won't need to be a sign up. It will be part of it. It will be part of the initial application.
Yeah.
But obviously that the way the Dodd group is using it isn't there yet.
Absolutely. There's a lot of things to add, but here, yeah, we're starting the process. Once at a slightly different stage, so that sends an email to the owner, telling them about the Shared Works platform, explaining what they can do on there, explaining that this is all coming from the Dodd group, and the way we've set up the system, depending on the client, whether it's Dodd or someone else, or community group, etc. All of the text, of course, is fully editable, so that it looks like it's all coming from them. So I'm not going to register. I've already done that, and I'm going to take you straight to what the homeowner would see once they log in. So I've now logged in as Henry, who owns the property on Geraldine Road. We're picking up the process here, not at the start, but a little bit further down the road, once there's been a retrofit assessment and we're about to install some measures. So that's what you're looking at right now is essentially the dashboard that the first thing they see ultimately when they arrive, with a clear progress bar at the top. So let me explain some of the things that we're seeing here. First of all, we talked earlier about English not being necessarily the first language of people that you're engaging with. So in the first instance, we've actually translated the whole platform into Urdu. And we can add new languages as we go along, but seeing something in their own language I think would be already quite helpful for a lot of people. So you arrive, you see a progress bar showing where you're at in the process. If I click on the check next step button here, I'm told that I'm at the installation stage, which means that a job has been booked in to install a measure in my home. So that immediately sort of tells me where I'm at. Over here in the middle, we've got access to help in the knowledge base. So we saw the booklet, for instance, that Dan showed us. A lot of that information can be structured here in the knowledge base. So here I've just put in some information about eco funding, for instance. But again, all of that can be pulled in from whatever documentation you've already got. a very clear sort of contact us button, and depending on whether or not it's a problem with sort of the platform, like a bug, or a problem with the process, you get to send your email to someone different. So here we've got the Dodd group that's all linked in with their phone number as well. And finally, as we progress through the system and through the process, the system will send notifications so that you know what's happening, a little bit like we're familiar with from Facebook or something like that. Good. So at the top here, we've got sort of 3 things. I'll very briefly explain what they're about. My property here, that takes me to my building passport, also called property logbook, which is a data repository about my house that I can keep forever. That has a lot of information about me, my occupancy of the home, about the house itself, what's it made of, etc. And the building passport here, which comments on the condition of the home. And this is really a really detailed data set that we're allowing users and the surveyors and the assessors that come into the properties to create, and one that's going to be very helpful to be able to sort of plan maintenance going forward, etc., etc. Over in my plan here, I have got what the system has suggested we're going to do, and what the surveyor has suggested we need to do. So I won't spend too much time on it right now, but we've got some recommendations here coming from the algorithm. We've got some actions here that we need to take that the surveyor has added to the platform. So that gives me a sort of combined plan for repairs and maintenance and improvements in one place. And finally, over here in my jobs, I can see the actual jobs that have taken place or that are going to take place. So everything started with a pre-EPC, a domestic energy assessment. And one thing that is currently scheduled is that we're going to install some loft insulation. And as a homeowner, typically the one action that I think Taz would agree we often need to take, or Dan would agree we often need to take, is to say that you can't make the date actually that was suggested. So here it was booked in for the 9th of June, and I'm going to send a message to Dan at Dodd saying that I can't make that date anymore, and I'd like it if we rescheduled the loft insulation installation to later in July. Okay, so I'm just doing that. Can we reschedule? And something as simple as this ensures that we reduce the number of times that a phone call has to be made. The email arrives directly in Dodd's mailbox, and then they can themselves log into the platform and edit the job date. I'll stop here. That's the email coming from the platform saying, "Hey Dan at Dodd, can we please do this job at a different time?" But I'll stop here. I think that's enough as far as sort of customer engagement features go. And I'll let Dan continue.
That's a great start, Louis. Thank you. So I think that demonstrates that any customer can log in, see exactly where they are in the process, what's coming next, can raise a question, and I think we need to add a feature in there that is also raise a complaint, not just a question, and that then gets escalated and tracked. So that's something, and one of the features that we need to work on. I think it'd be interesting, certainly from the people on the call who would be interested to see a little bit more about the data collection and the property passport and how that comes about. Maybe a couple more minutes on that, if that's all right.
Sure. Is that something we want to do now?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, no problem. So I'll share again. Okay. So yeah, I talked about this concept of a building passport, which is a sort of well-known concept in the industry. Everything is digital these days, but homes aren't. Okay, so a digital building passport is all about trying to record data about the home, and data that obviously looks at the past. So how was the building put together? What's it made of, etc. Looking at its current condition and looking at what we need to do to it going forward in terms of repairs and maintenance. So the building passport sort of has that role. The data can be accessed from the homeowner side, and this is the side that we're looking at here, or from the contractor side. So the idea is that all of the different stakeholders in a building project or in a retrofit project can contribute some data about the home. In the vast majority of cases, homeowners don't know much about their houses and they don't necessarily know how to describe them. So this is their data ultimately, so they can always kind of come in, view the data, edit it, and enrich it. But we expect that a lot of the data will actually be filled in by the likes of Dan at Dodd, or someone else, or a retrofit assessor or coordinator. So let's just go through some elements very quickly. I'm not going to go through the whole fields of the building passports. There's hundreds and hundreds. But for instance, here at the top, if I go to property information, that's all of the things that you'd be expecting. Understanding the age of the property, what's it made of, in terms of bathrooms and habitable rooms, whether you own it or whether you're a tenant, etc., etc. Okay. I'll pop out and go into another section. For instance, household. So this is these are questions about occupancy. How many people live here? Are they here on the weekend? What are your kind of priorities? How many days do you spend at home, etc., etc. So lots of information about how you use the property. It's great to see that there's been a new British standard that's been announced for retrofit assessment. So BS 40104, I think. That suggests a new structure for how that information should be inputted. It hasn't been published yet, but as soon as it's published, we'll embed that in here so that it's ultimately reusing the industry standard for retrofit assessments. And just to clarify any potential question, you can do your retrofit assessment on here. It will ask you all the same questions that you'll need to fill in for that. Now on the contractor side, so I'm now back on the same platform, but the view from Daniel at Dodd's side of things.
Yeah, sorry, Louis, there's a few questions coming in around the kind of how other people access this. So far we've focused on the customer experience. So yeah, I think Louis is now going to talk about the other team members and how Dodd Group can access it, but also how other team members like the community, like Mech Trust, ACOS Greener, and how they can access this data as well.
Ultimately,
and then sorry, Louis, and then we'll come on to the project sponsor and their access to the council, etc., and which for me is incredibly important.
Yeah, look, I think ultimately it's quite simple. We've got a big data repository, and we have started already sort of coding in permissions. So who can see what data, and then for what purpose. So, for instance, by default, some of the information relating to people's financial position isn't available to a contractor. But what boiler do they have is information that's available by default. One of the things that we're currently building in is a consent mechanism so that your contractor, your coordinator, can request access to a particular data point, and then that can be given from the homeowner side. So in short, some of the permissions I've sort of hard-coded, we've built them in already. But anytime that a new data point is required by any of the stakeholders, they can ask for access to it. And this is a feature that we haven't deployed yet, so I can't show it to you, but that's something that we're building at the moment. So here I'm Dan at Dodd. So we're going to go into the building passport that I was just at on the homeowner side earlier. As you can see, I have a few more features. For instance, I can go and fetch data coming from publicly available sources. I can generate a medium-term improvement plan, or at least a set of recommendations for my home. I'm not going to focus too much today on the modeling that is embedded in the platform, but suffice to say there's some pretty sophisticated algorithms powering this. So the people and property information we've just had a look at, so I'm not going to go back in there. What I think is quite interesting here is this second section here, which comments more on the condition of the property and the condition of absolutely every single thing about the property. So we've built this according to standards from RICS, from the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors. And again, this will allow me to comment on every single element. I'm not going to go through the whole data structure. Hopefully we've got a little search function here. So for instance, I'm going to go to a boiler. Actually, it's not boiler, it's main heating system. Great. So we can see that it's mains gas, it's a Vaillant model. We can see what kind of category of heating system this is. This is our retrofit assessment information. Okay, so it's old and needs replacing, it's in poor condition. And so we've set up an action against that, which is to replace the boiler, upgrade it to a new combi, etc., etc. And a quantity surveyor can come in and then suggest what the price might be. Similarly, if I want to go and look at another element, say windows, so roof window. All right, we have a VLUX here that is not wind tight, and we've got an action logged against it. We need to refurbish it. Priority is desirable. It's going to cost this much, etc., etc. Okay, so the idea behind shared works is that it's not just something to deal with necessarily just decarbonization work, but the idea is to give proprietors a very holistic understanding of what needs to happen to the property, from repairs and maintenance all the way through to energy efficiency and decarbonization. And so with all of this data, once we generate a plan, we get to the plan over here. So I'm going to look at the plan for the same property. As you can see, I'm still Dan at Dodd here, so I've got access to all of the plans of all the properties that I'm managing or that I'm progressing. So let's go for the one that we've been looking at.
Louis, just to add to that, presumably that could be Taz at Mech Trust, a view for this could be Taz's view from Mech Trust,
Yes.
just with slightly less, maybe slightly less information, slightly different information, but Taz could have a similar view, presumably.
The short answer is yes, absolutely. I didn't spend too much time on that, but the system has various modes. You can access it as a community coordinator, as a contractor, as a local authority, and as a homeowner. And according to these different modes or use cases, we've got a slightly different set of permissions. So the answer is yes.
Thank you.
So on the back of the data that we had in the building passport, we've created a plan. The plan is coming from a mixture of the algorithm and the surveyor or the retrofit assessor themselves, who have identified that we need to, for instance, do input-output calculation for the radiators, and we need to inspect the roof every year. Okay. Once we're happy, once the retrofit assessment is done and we're happy with what we're seeing, we can publish this to the client, and this is what basically sends it to the client side over here. So I'm now on the client side, and the idea behind that is to try and deal with the problem whereby a retrofit assessment is done, and there are like 10 measures suggested, and then because of the funding available, etc., the contractor is only able to do 1 or 2, and then the customer comes back saying, you said we needed XYZ and we've only gotten this, so what's going on? So the idea is that we give control to the contractor, to Dodd, to decide what they want to publish to the client. We have a few things here suggested. So internal solid wall insulation, windows, boiler replacement, and let's go to internal solid wall. So what have we got? We've got ways to progress then with a job by registering our interest, remove the action altogether. And then we've got some educational information here. So this is like work in progress. As you can see, the design isn't very nice. But this is typically exactly where we would put a lot of the info that Daniel showed us earlier, coming from his booklet, explaining what this is. Now, again, I'm seeing this from Dan's perspective here, but let me just go to the homeowner's perspective. And again, it's the same thing. So they have access to the same information, and they can see what's going to happen to them. And the really cool thing about this is that, again, it's not just we haven't sort of taken data from an EPC and then showed it. We've done our own calculation, we've done our own retrofit assessment of our own algorithms, and we're able to say, this is what you're going to save in operating costs, this is what you're going to save in energy, and as a result, carbon footprint. And specifically, what are you going to save on? So is it going to be on heating, on hot water, etc., etc.?
Louis, I think I'm going to have to move you on a little bit if that's all right. I know there's
Yeah, I think
I will say
I'm happy with that.
it's great to listen to Louis because he's super enthusiastic about the project he's developed, and there is so much more to it than you've seen so far, and there just isn't time for all of it today, by any means. We will get into some questions in a little while. I think the last thing to talk about is probably around the reporting, which obviously, as Dan knows, as any other local authority who's delivered retrofit programs knows, there's a massive need for reporting, and what because of all the data that's collected in here at a project and program level, the shared works is aimed at really helping local authorities, regional authorities, or other kind of project sponsors to actually report as well. So Louis, do you want to speak really quickly about that?
Yeah, sure. I won't take too long. So in terms of analytics, what we've done is try to bring together, well, there's two ways in which you can get analytics data into the system, either anything that transits through the system, so that's quite simple, or anything coming from other systems via API, okay? Point is, so we've been working on what kind of data, what kind of KPIs make sense to show. So this is, again, work in progress, but it's about how many users we've got at the different stages, how much time they spend at different stages, what the impact has been on EPC before and after. So as we progress through the journey, and then again, what type of measures we've installed. So ultimately, all of that is counted automatically by the system as it goes along. Now, again, here I'm looking at the platform from Dan at Dot's perspective, and I can scroll through my different programs. So if I want to see what is the data for the Great British Insulation Scheme, I can do that. And then I can scroll through my different clients. Okay, so at the moment, we've only got Birmingham in the platform, but if you're working across different geographies, then you can sort by geography. And so that's for the contractor. Now, I do want to show you, and I'll finish on that, the local authority and the council side to the data, because I think it's often a problem for local authorities, and we've seen this, in our experience in all kinds of subjects, not just retrofit, that local authorities often don't actually have a lot of data about what's going on in the locality, and that's a big issue. So here we're looking at Birmingham's platform. Okay, we have some high-level information here about all programs, everything put together. I'm going to go over to the statistics here, and this is roughly the same data that we were looking at on the DOD side. And again, here the local authority can scroll and pick the data either coming from DOD or from any other partner that they're working with, and any other funding program as well, right? And we've got the same sort of like histogram of VPCs at the bottom here. Now, and this is my last sort of comment. We're currently hearing from Dan what kind of permissions he wants over all of the data that is in the system. It's not just a case that you can have access to sort of aggregate numbers, but you can also, if you want, have access to the actual properties and parts of their building passports. You can see what communities, such as TAS's community, have been created locally, and you can access them, and you can see what addresses are present, for instance. So anyway, anything basically that the platform records is available, and when we need to work with the council to make sure that we restrict access to only the right data. So hopefully that helps give you a sense of what the potential is for local authorities.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So from my point of view, I know that I can use this platform to report on property level, project level, and program level. So if the council, or I think Alex is on here from the Combined Authority, and Serena might be here as well from the Net Zero Hub. So at that program level, you could use it to actually look at how Birmingham doing, how's Coventry doing, how but then look at the program as a whole as well. Or as a local authority, I will, if and when we have a platform similar to this or similar, the aim would be, if we're delivering eco with 4 different partners, I can look at how each partner's doing and how we're doing as a whole, and also bring in SHDF and look at how that's going, and really start to see retrofit as a program rather than in its individual stream. So really exciting in terms of from a local authority and management point of view. I think massive opportunity. Okay, so I think that was great, Louis. Thank you very much. I have seen quite a few questions that we will get to in the next couple of minutes. Taz or Dan, do you want to very quickly add anything from what you've seen? I know, Taz, you're fairly recent to seeing shared work. Dan, you've clearly been part of it and are actually starting to adopt in some of the projects that you're working on. So in kind of 10, 20 seconds, do either of you want to say how you feel this can change how you work and the real benefits of it that you see? Dan, do you want to go first?
Yeah, so we are adopting it. We're working with Louis and we're embedding it with Wrekin Housing Trust. We're currently carrying out some EPCs and retrofit assessments to gather the data for them and then pick up any quick win work to get them from a D to a C. That's start of a much larger project, hopefully with that client and many others. And Louis has been working with us on that. So they've adopted it alongside Dodd Group for a live platform trial, which I think is important. Feedback so far has been very, very good. We haven't yet got customer feedback because we're still rolling it out. So there's some work to be done, but I think so far everyone is very keen on it. It will, as you say, provide all the KPIs. Everyone can see it, so there's no hiding from it. And most importantly, it answers a lot of the customer questions, but also the other stakeholders. So everyone can see it, as Louis demonstrated. Everyone can see the same information. You can spin it into pivot tables. You can report on it. And it does give you a much better collective view, because historically we've all had a number of different platforms, and you as a client are relying on us providing data. We're having to pull data from 2 or 3 different places, and we know the more places you pull data from, the more chance you've got of some of that being rogue data. Whereas with this, it's lifetime. It's pulling it from the same place. You can't be wrong. And I think that will go a long way. We'll spend more time delivering and less time managing the systems, and that can only be a good thing.
Great, thanks, Dan. And Taz, obviously recognising this will be one of the tools within your armoury, and I don't imagine everybody will want to use a digital approach. And but do you see this as being helpful as a community lead to managing projects in the future?
I think what's brilliant is that it illuminates the whole landscape, because retrofit is so complicated. And one of the issues we had is that the process was not transparent. I mean, the team came up with a list of all the different points where we had to make an intervention, from initial referral and engagement, home visit, all the way to sign off. And we came up with 29 different interventions. And as I was listening to what Louis was saying, I was just ticking off all the areas where we could have saved a headache. So I think it is really powerful, because it allows us to explain things, and where people don't understand, why has my neighbor got the grant and I haven't? The software could give us an insight into that. Why am I behind in the supply chain, or something was promised? So transparency, minimizing complexity, it's equitable, it will save time, and it means that our communication is more effective and timely. So I think it'll be a really powerful tool for us.
That's great, thanks, Taz. Right, should we move on to Louis? You looked like you wanted to say something then.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that we would massively benefit from further engaging with TAS, and specifically because 29 different touch points. I'm sure we don't necessarily cover all 29 today, and there's a lot more work that we can put in the platform to make sure that we cover most of the bases. So yeah, this is by no means a finished product. It's definitely a work in progress, but Yeah.
I suggest that's a session with Taz, Marta, Nigel, and John, if John's still on the call. We can certainly set that up. So let me go to some of the questions. I think there were quite a lot of early questions around, can the council access this? Can the community groups access this? Which I hope we've covered. Now, there's a question here, Louis. Most of the questions are for you, Louis. Sorry. Can the data be transferred to a new homeowner? Because obviously there's massive benefit to, I mean, imagine you sell a home now, that the bloody forms you have to fill in to give all the information about your home to the solicitor. It would be immediately available to you. So really, really beneficial. Can that be made available to future homeowners?
Yeah, so I've got two points on that. So the short answer is yes, because the way the platform works today is that you're associated to an email address. Okay, so the simple answer is switch the email address and someone else can have access to the data. The more sophisticated answer is to do with the fact that we are working with other people in this space, other companies that provide building logbooks, and specifically the Residential Logbook Association, to make that transfer formal. And by formal, I mean that the conveyancing process can check whether or not a building logbook is available, and then that automatically gets transferred over. So the short answer is yes. The long answer is yes as well. But there's more behind the scenes basically to make that formal and make that sort of legal and above board.
Thanks, Louis. David Chapman from Solihull is sent in lots of comments and questions, so I really appreciate that, David. Thank you. One of them is, it's more of a comment, but you might have thoughts. It'd be great to link this to energy use data from utility companies.
Yeah, we've got a couple of projects going on at the moment, specifically on that. I don't know if they're embargoed yet. I won't say which project, just in case they are. But yes, so we've got program of works at the moment to be able to embed smart meter data directly in this, and then there's another program of work so that we can use that data in the algorithms. So the short answer is yes, but that's quite that's a big piece of work, but it's an important one.
Right, thank you. From Graham, is servicing and maintenance outside of the retrofit program also part of the development plan? So it's not something we've discussed. I don't know if it's part of the plan for the wider shared works.
So we actually came from repairs and maintenance, technically. Long story short, we started in Scotland with shared repairs and maintenance in blocks of flats, in tenement blocks in Scotland. I live in Edinburgh. So in short, yes, because we've come from this kind of repairs and maintenance space, we've always wanted to give people a sort of combined to-do list for their building that included servicing boilers all the way through to actually changing it to a heat pump. So again, the ambition is to do that. And today, in your building passport, you'll be able to comment on lots of things that are not retrofit related, be it changing, repairing slates or stuff like that. So yeah, absolutely.
That's great. Okay. There's another, Alex Gordon made the suggestion of pulling live data around consumption, air quality, etc., into future functionality. I know live data is pulled into the platform already in some respects, but that's maybe a thought for air quality one. Might be an interesting one.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I'm going to drop to the right. Who owns the platform? Is a question from Marta. And I know, Marta, you've got your hand up. We'll come to you. We'll come to you straight after this one.
So I mean, Novaville owns it. It's a product that we've developed in partnership with the likes of Dan, etc. And it's a license fee, so we make it available under license to any organization that needs it.
So it's owned by Novaville, but the data.
We don't own the data. No, the data. Well, the data. It's a really important and complicated question. Most of the data belongs to the homeowner. Not all of it, but yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry, Dan, I'm just thinking, is it worth discussing very quickly a little bit more about the financial model?
I've unmuted.
Oh.
The finance, yeah, sure. So David asked the question: is it available now for rollout, and what's the cost for use? I don't know if we can answer that at this stage. It's possibly not. Is it available for rollout? I'm sure you can answer that one.
Yeah, it is.
It is, yeah. Marta.
you should have guessed that if you invite us, we're not going to stay silent. Haha.
I wouldn't want you to.
There are a few things which I have learned during the summit, and one of them was that Equine is using something what is called Switchy, and that is a live data about air quality and temperature, moisture, and other things. Do you think data from Switchy could be added to the platform? I will continue with questions unless you stop me and you want to.
Well, let's
think about it, though.
let's take that one. Let's take that one to start with.
Yeah, there's no technical difficulty to integrating more data in the platform.
Okay.
What we need to work on is make sure that we can then use that data correctly in the system.
I was going to add the same thing. It's about what would we want to use that data for. So theoretically, yes, but to what extent would we want to use that data? Because Switchy data, there's a massive data that comes from Switchy.
Okay.
So it'd be, it's probably not for debating now, but yes, is the answer to the question.
In theory, it's possible to add it. Another question is, you have list of potential jobs or measures which can be added to or for the maintenance or retrofit of a particular building. But for the homeowner, it's also important that there will be an energy assessor coming to your door. There will be a scaffolding scheduled job for solar panels or roof repairs or change of windows. Those sort of people who come to your door stress a lot of people out because they need to have confidence that those who are knocking on the door are coming from the right place. They're not con artists. They're not people who are trying to do something sinister to their properties. We are introducing changes to their households, to their homes, and they feel precious about it. So somebody who turns up at 8:30 and tries to put scaffolding outside of your door, homeowners should have been informed. And I think I haven't seen yet in the list of jobs and subcontractors involved any place for that. And I would love to see that.
Yeah, and I'll show you that briefly. So what we're looking at here is, again, the platform from Daniel's perspective. And I'm going to create a job for one of the properties. So let's stick with this one. In this case, we're going to install something. And I'm just going to go with, scaffold, for insulation. So you pop that in. That's then available to see from the homeowner side. And then once you've done that, you notify the homeowner. So you just click this button and they'll get an email saying, we've now scheduled this job. It's going to happen at this time. And you can select again what language you want to send that.
Yeah, it would be nice to see who is coming. So what subcontractor to expect.
Yeah.
Another question, since people will be maintaining the logbooks, can they add to it at their will? So in few years' time, in a couple of years' time, somebody logs to the logbook to show that they have changed the boiler or some other piece of maintenance has happened, to make sure that this is a live document which is up to date.
Absolutely. The idea of the logbook is that it stays with the homeowner forever. And we keep an up-to-date record of what's been done. Something I didn't necessarily show is that depending on who puts data in, if it's the homeowner or if it's the retrofit assessor or someone who's accredited, a slightly different confidence rating is associated, so that the next person that comes in can see, okay, that data has been filled in by the homeowner, so we'll take it as with a pinch of salt, whereas this one has been actually put in by an accredited retrofit assessor.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Certificates related.
Sorry, can I just ask somebody else's question quickly? Yeah. Marta, thank you.
I think sorry.
I think this may be more for Dan Camp rather than Louis. Let's see who takes on retrofit design responsibility.
So again, the work we're doing with Reekin, we're actually providing our own in-house retrofit assessment and EPC. So we're directly putting that information into Louis' platform. Something that I think Louis probably showed at the beginning, but we will do the EPC. We are doing the EPC on a EPC specific platform. That then gets uploaded to the government website. So it goes where it needs to go, but we also transfer that document straight into Louis' system. And then when we start doing the retrofit assessment, it pulls the data from the EPC and that auto fills the relevant sections, and we complete the rest of the retrofit assessment in the system. Retrofit coordination and coordinators would have access to the system to complete their works. If it was a project we were working on and we were carrying out the professional services, it would all be done by us. But if retrofit assessments and professional services are carried out by a Civico, for argument's sake, they would have access and they would be able to import the data and export the data as well. Lou, that's correct, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Dan. I'll bring Alex in. You've got your hand up.
Yeah, cheers, Dan. Just to pick up on one of your comments, Louis, you said that you'd expect the sort of passport that's created on the system to sort of live evermore with the home. I'm just interested a bit in the sort of like the commercial case for this. So if there's, well, one I assume there's going to be some level of ongoing cost to, you know, maintaining an ever-growing database of homes across like the region or wider.
Mm-hmm.
So where does the cost for that lie? Is it paid completely, you know, upfront by the local authority, the combined authority, you know, whoever's sort of commissioned this piece of work? I'm just interested to hear about how it's sort of paid for, you know, beyond the retrofit scheme.
Yeah, look, the honest answer is we're still figuring that out. Now, I know what I would like, which is that wherever a proprietor or a homeowner is accessing the platform because of an existing scheme, okay, be that a government scheme, I mean, it's likely to be a government scheme, that they wouldn't have to pay for it, or at least for a long time, we're talking like years. When it's the able to pay market that eventually makes its way through to the platform, yes, there would be a small subscription to have access to the building passport. And, you know, it's unlikely to be much. It could end up being something like a pound a month or something. But what I would really like is for us to be able to build into the pricing, you know, free access for 5 years, for 10 years for proprietors when this is coming from a scheme. And I actually think that would be, I don't know whether Dan from BCC would agree, but it would be a cool gesture to say, you know, you're not just you're getting this stuff, but it's also coming with the platform, and you'll have access to the platform for a long time. We've paid for it for you. I think that would be quite a powerful message for people. I
agree. Yeah, I agree. Sorry, there's a couple of questions. Nigel, I've seen your hand up, Nigel. Izzy from Walsall has asked, is it easy to remove a home from the database if the new homeowner decides they don't want it on there? And David Chapman has followed that up with saying it shouldn't really be possible because, like an MOT, kind of it should be there forever. I suppose this comes down to the wider conversation you're having, Louis, around passports.
Partly, yes, and it ultimately also depends on who's got control over why the platform is set up in the first place. So if it's able to pay, for instance, and they want to use the platform, and then they realize they don't like it and they want to delete their account, they delete their account, the data is deleted along with them. If it's, again, if this is as part of a scheme and there's a different reason, if it's as part of a scheme where it's the government, for instance, the local government that controls this, then it's a slightly different story. But again, it depends on who owns what data. But a lot of the data, for instance, the publicly available data, that's public anyway. But things like the maintenance records, your household information, your financial information, if you want to delete that, then you delete that, and government obviously doesn't have any access to that.
Makes sense. Nigel? We can't hear you. Oh, there you are.
No, sorry. 3 quick points. One is that we're working on a project together with the MEC on putting together a database. It's called Brumbird Project, and I think it would be very important that this data could be fed straight into the database. And one of the things that it's going to include will be LiDAR data, 3-dimensional data on the outside from a drone flying. And another, which will be helpful, will be infrared photography on a cold day, showing heat bridges, etc., cold bridges. So that was one point. The second is, I didn't notice that you had things about disabilities. That'll be very important, I think. And the third is there any way that we can make it essential or compulsory that contractors who do work, or indeed householders who do it yourself, actually update it? Because this is going to be really valuable, and we need to make sure that it's not just those who care to pay the subscription who get to put data in, and all the other cowboys who put the things through the door don't.
Yeah, I think on the last point around DIY and putting your own data in and recording some of the stuff that you've done, that today is fully set up so that you can do that, right? So you can go into your own building passport and you can say, I've done this, I've had a project around that, and I've improved my property. On the previous point around disability, we've tried to make the platform as accessible as possible and according to standards, but I think there's a lot more work to do. So I'd be very happy to work with you on that if you have experience of that's, around that.
I'm worried about recording disability as one of the things about the inhabitant.
Okay.
Yeah.
We do not record today data that would be classified like sensitive data, such as that. We originally did put stuff in, but then we removed it for reasons that I'm sure you know.
Right, thank you. David, I think that's a great idea. David just suggested if homeowners are okay with putting data on the system, could we set up the passport so it notifies them if eligible funding becomes available? I think that would be
phenomenal, wouldn't it? That would be fantastic.
Marta, get your point about some people are reluctant to share data.
Totally appreciate that, yeah.
And that will be part of the process, just like any other GDPR requirements. So it will be up to people if they put that in or not.
Sorry, Dan, there was a good question that came through on the feed about people who might not have an email address, and is there a different way of accessing it through WhatsApp or other digital platforms?
Thanks, Dan.
So yeah, today we haven't built that in, but I know that's a blind spot, or that's would be a very desirable feature, particularly WhatsApp. I know it's possible to integrate WhatsApp thanks to WhatsApp for Business, so that's on the roadmap, but it's not something we've built today. But I agree, that's a very good point.
Right, thank you. I think we've got through all the questions. If anyone's asked a question, there's quite a long list of questions. If I've missed any, stick your hand up now, and we'll get. Or is there anybody else that wants to ask any questions? Nigel.
Well, it's me again. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. I thought it looked like Nigel's hand. Sorry.
It is me. The question is about the questions we should have asked before certain measures were decided on. Give you an example. In our external wall insulation could be done with rock wool or styrofoam, and that should have been asked as a question, and homeowners sometimes not necessarily think of that. Or another one, which is more important, solar panels, inverter, the one which potentially can be later used for battery, but there are inverters which are commonly used which don't cope with battery, and in a few years later, when homeowners decide to replace or add battery to the set, they have to replace the inverter, which is more expensive. So can we build in the sort of frequently asked questions based on measures which are suggested for the homeowners, that they should take those decisions and be more conscious of those decisions and choices they make?
Yeah, I think if I could just step in on that one, Dan, that's a very valid point. Where we can, certainly again, as the lessons learned went through, we very quickly switched to inverters that were battery ready, so they were future proofed. There was a little bit of a lull with the availability of those inverters at one point in the program, so we had to carry on using traditional inverters. But where we can, certainly going forward on any project, it would make absolute sense to make sure everything's future proofed as much as the system will allow it and as much as PAS will allow it. And you're right, the choice of materials and finish that goes on somebody's property within parameters around planning, and again around the cost caps, which was something we suffered a little bit with customers on through LAD3, as to what they could actually get for their money. So a huge amount of people wanted EWI and would have massively benefited from it, but the costs were just too exorbitant because of the size and the trickiness of the properties that we couldn't install it this time round.
Another question is about the handover and how people are made aware of how the technology, in particular technology, is installed as a retrofit. Sometimes they still don't know how to use it and how to interact with.
But the
with the
Q&A
batteries
will
and-
do that.
Yeah, I think there's two responses to that. But as far as the kind of sticking with the shared works platform, there's the ability to upload information, all sorts of information, informative information to the platform, so that the customer has that there forever, so they can read that at their will. But the platform can't do everything, so there still needs to be the human side of it as well, and that's where people like you, people like Taz, Dan Camp and his team have to come in, and we have to do that part better as well. But as far as the platform's concerned, it's a great way to share information and keep it in one place. So somebody can always go and look back at, oh, how did they say I needed to turn down my air source heat pump or whatever it is. And so there's always that information available to them in one place on that platform, in that home property passport.
Yeah, if I could just say a quick thing on that. Yeah, this platform is trying to find the right balance. Obviously, it's trying to do a lot, but it's designed around people. So it's not saying that the whole retrofit design is going to be done on the platform. You still need humans and people that have a lot of good qualifications to do that. You can help with the retrofit assessment and giving a sense of what can be done and basically providing a tool for education. But it's supposed to augment people on the ground who need to engage with the customer and who need to do the work. It's obviously not supposed to do everything. That's not our approach here.
So, question from Catherine: how many retrofit projects have been completed through the platform?
At the moment, grand total of 0. Retrofit projects 0. However,
we started working on this, Catherine, about 6 months ago. So
Yeah.
it's a really new product. Hence this conversation, to get people's feedback, input into its development. But Dan Camp is now starting to roll it out across some of the Hug and Eco programs, and I'm very, very hopeful that we will have a platform similar to this when we scale up Eco. Obviously, we will have to go through a procurement process to reach that point.
there's a but as well. Like, so as I said earlier, Novaville runs a marketplace platform similar to this one, albeit a bit simpler, in Scotland for repairs and maintenance. And on that side, we've run hundreds of projects, so we do have some experience taking people through an end-to-end technical digital system, but this one is new.
Right. Izzy sent it. Looks like a follow-on to the email address phone. I think we wanted part of that.
That's a question.
Community group assist. Sorry, go ahead, Louis.
No, I was going to say, yeah, can ultimately, I think the question is asked, does a homeowner need to use the platform? And ultimately the answer is no. You can have the coordinator or the contractor do work on the platform, fill in the data with the homeowner, with them in the house. But then if the homeowner is not digitally savvy or doesn't want to use any such systems, then they don't have to, of course.
Yeah.
And then talking about from Marta here, uploading certificates. I didn't go through this, but there is a home in the building passport for documents. So whether it's your EPCs or your certificates, warranties, and user manuals, there's a home for that.
Yeah. Great. One last call for questions, and then I'm going to wrap up.
Probably just one thing I was going to add, Dan, and you're right, we're talking about the retrofit journey to the point where we've handed over with the customer. They've got a warranty for 2 years through Warranty Mark or Quality Mark. They've got all their information on how to use it. The ongoing maintenance currently doesn't form part of these programs. So once you've got an air source heat pump at your property, if you're a private owner and you've got PV and you've got other technologies, there's a period of time where you have a warranty around that. But the repairs, maintenance, and the ongoing maintenance to ensure that those products are fit for purpose and they continue to generate the electricity and work efficiently, that isn't something that's currently covered under these funding models, but it is something I think as we get further into it needs to be explored, and that's not a question for us necessarily today, but it's something I think we do need to look at. So we don't just hand it over and say, there you go, this is how you turn it on and off, and we walk away and then the customer's left 3, 4, 5 years down the road and the products aren't performing because there's overgrowing trees or it needs a clean or there's some other general day-to-day service issue. So I think that's something we need to take away and look at maybe as a follow-on from this.
Yeah, great. Okay, thanks to Louis, Dan and Taz very much for joining me on the panel. I think it's been really interesting, and thank you all so much for coming along, adding your thoughts. It's always, your comments are always very valuable and will help to develop the platform. So any questions, drop me an email, and if anybody wants to know more or have a more in-depth run through, then just give us a shout. Great to see everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Thanks, Taz.
Bye.
Take
Cheers.
care. Bye, everybody.